Hey guys, Darius here, and I've always wanted to do a VFX breakdown. I love doing visual effects like Corridor Digital and things like that, and I've always wanted to do a VFX breakdown like they do. And so I've been working on this project for a while now. It is KM United's KDA dance cover. If you know me, I love to do dance covers, K-pop, things like that. But this one in particular involved a lot of effects because it's based on League of Legends characters. At the time of this recording, it is actually not done yet. I'm still waiting for final approvals on all the things, but I thought, since we're close to done, I hope that I can take you through on how I did the effects. So let's just go straight into it. So this one's actually fairly simple. It's gonna be super messy. I do not organize my comps and things very well, but the original source footage is probably just this. And it's just them dancing. So basically with the 3D tracker, it will track in the scene and follow all these little dots here. These are points where it's figured out, like, okay, they can track that and really develop a digital camera to base it off. I was able to create a digital camera, and then I would place these sound waves in their respective points. But the problem with these sound waves is they are on top of the footage. So as you see here with Winnie's leg, but it should technically be behind it. So I just had to isolate her leg, mask it out frame by frame for the duration where it's in front of it, and voila. As easy as that. It's not that easy. I hate rotoscoping. It's probably the one thing I really hate about doing special effects. Always green screen if you can. So in terms of actually making the audio spectra, audio waveform type situations, all I did was actually use an effect called audio spectrum. It creates it basically from scratch from a simple solid, linked it to the audio that I was using, and adjusted it to my liking. And I also added a little bit of glow to it, as you can see there, just making it pop a little bit better, and it is also a blending mode of add. Pretty simple effect. This is probably one of the easier effects in the whole entire video. This is the effect that really took the longest to do. I believe the character's Ari is called. It is actually pretty simple in concept. It just took long because, like I said, you should green screen everything if you know you're gonna put something behind your subject. And I did not do that in this case. And so it was a lot of rotoscoping. So this is Mary here, nicely cut out of the scene, kind of. It's actually pretty janky if you look closely at it, but that's the base of it. So like it looks alright, like in terms of frame by frame. So basically I started with the base. We have just her torso and ears and legs. This was all rotoscoped using the rotoscope tool. That's fairly easy, just like highlight these little sections here, and the computer does that all, but at least from my experience, the rotoscope tool is actually pretty janky and won't do well with motions that move really quickly, like her arms, for example. So the way I had to rotoscope her arms is I had to section her arms into 4 sections here for these arms, and I keyframe them frame by frame. Annoyingly, you can see all these bloody keyframes. But yeah, that's basically it. Simple in concept, horrible in execution. Green screen your subjects if you can. It was a fun experience, I guess. I'm dying inside, just looking at the comp.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
I was actually really scared that I wasn't too sure if I could get these tails to actually move that like they do here. We had our awesome prop maker, Anthony Gabbs, make some tails. We didn't actually use it in the actual video, but I reassured him that it would still be useful for the final video. Like we see here, we actually have pictures of the tail in different directions, and I basically placed them 9 tails like this, and then animate them so that they flower and bloom like so. Gave it a bit of a glow with a fast box blur. And let me think what else. Oh, one thing that I really liked about this effect is this outline that we have around Mary. See this doorway here, there's obviously sunlight coming from there. if you have a subject directly behind it, you should have a little bit of light wrapping around whatever's in front of the light. So when you see Mary's kind of edges here, you'll see that kind of there's a pink light that's emitting from the tails. That's what I intended them to be, at least. So basically I duplicated the layer of her base, just her, not the tails. It should be this one. And made it kind of this pinkish glow. And from there, I duplicated the layer again, made a layer that's kind of like using the rough and edge tool, kind of like shrink the edge a little bit so that we have a little bit of an outline, creating a lumen mat with that rough and edged layer. And there we have it. Yeah, so light wrapping, and another really subtle effect that you probably didn't notice, I probably wouldn't have noticed, is this little displacement of the tails, because the tails, at least from what I saw, are kind of this glassy looking. So I thought it would be cool to kind of like when you look through the glass, like kind of when you look through a water bottle here, it kind of displaces the image a little bit. So when you look at the tails here, they actually so if you see this tree here, they actually slightly adjust the image. And that happens with all of this. I used adjustment layer on the background layer and basically padded the displacement effect. And from here you can see that's what the displacement effect is actually doing. I am using a displacement map layer, which is Precomp 5. And Precomp 5 is just the tails layer, made it black and white. The computer is basically determining on the black bits, displace the background a little bit, and on the white bits, just keep it as normal. And I guess since we're on this shot, we also had the nice little heart. All I did, literally, was cut out the heart from the actual video. Anyway, there's the heart. Gave it an add. And it looks really nice. And because it's add, you can see through and you can still see Mary through that little heart there. Cool. Sounds good. Okay, let's move on to the next shot. Oh, okay, this is my pretty favorite part because I knew this would work, but I didn't know how well it would work. So we'll take a look at this normal comp here. It just like speeds up and then slows down. I'm like, oh cool, that really works out. Very anime-esque. Zoom, zoom. I rotoscoped Jasmine out of the shots here. And basically, for each, I think I did every 2 frames, I freeze framed on this rotoscoped layer and then created 2 colored layers. Where we have here, creating this kind of like nice shadowed super speed effect. So I did a bit of research on how the attacks actually look for the individual characters. And from what I remember for Jasmine's character, she had a little like slash effect. Kind of like what we see here. Probably looks better in game. But I try to replicate it as best I can by using a shape layer, cutting out the shape, and then if we just isolate this one. And you can see here, when it's fast, that speed of slash. It's nice and fast there, nice and easy. And then from there, it's just nice and slow there. Like a nice slow motion effect. And I also just added this little slow motion spark here. I don't believe that's actually what happens in the game, but in terms of visual effects, you kind of want to really layer effects and make them seem like they have dimension to it to make them seem real, even though this is no way realistic or is meant to look realistic. It's a stylized type of an effect, but it adds that little bit of touch of realism there. The reason why probably this particular shot took long to render is because of this adjustment layer here, which has pixel motion blur. So if I turn this off, it'll be actually super fast to render. And then you'll see here, this is where we sped it up. And it actually looks pretty cool there, and I probably could have left it like that. But I thought, let's add this little motion blur effect. Realistically, if you have a camera moving really fast away from a subject, there's going to be a bit of motion blur. But because we filmed it in slow motion, there's not going to be any motion blur. And so we add that in post. But yeah, all it is basically just adding that blur. You can really see it on Mel's arm here. So if I turn it off and on. Very simple thing. Adds a bit of realism to it. So yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. Check out the full video if you haven't. Why would you come to this video if you haven't seen the full video? Kind of ruins the magic. And thank you so much to Anthony Gaps as well for making the props. So it's always a pleasure, man, working with you. And thank you, KDA United, for having me. This was a super fun project, even though it took so long and was really grueling. It was fun. And if you like these kind of visual effects breakdowns, comment below, like it. Give me some kind of indication that what I'm doing here is somewhat entertaining. So yeah, catch you next time.